All right, good morning. So I wanted to talk a little bit about software developers today. So software, that's something that's been part of my life since 1996, I guess. That was when I first learned how to code. The first languages I learned was Q Basic, and I also learned about HTML at that time. How websites, obviously very early. You even call them web pages, I guess, really, at that point in time. But since then I've learned like a dozen other languages and all kinds of different technologies and frameworks and libraries and all the other things that go along with that: databases, network infrastructure and communication, blah blah blah, right? I think there's a lot of concern and confusion surrounding the field of programming and how AI is affecting it still. So I feel I've got a pretty good grasp of kind of like what is going on in that area. Again, just quick recap, as far as like my exposure to using AI for coding. I have been researching and in the field of AI since 2017, with a significant amount of that research being done in the area of natural language processing, which is the same category or same field as large language models, which is what is fueling all of the hype these days. So, and then as far as using AI to code, I've been doing that pretty much since a few weeks or a few months. A few weeks or months before ChatGPT, the very first ChatGPT was released. And that was a point in time where my worldview changed in terms of the rate of progress still. And I knew that once we could see the AI starting to code, that the speed was going to pick up in terms of everything still. Because as we know, software is eating the world, and now AI is eating software, right? So obviously 2+ years down the road from that sort of event, we have tools like Cursor, right? So Cursor is a tool that I'd been using since, on and off still actually, since they came out. There's open source versions of that. There are plenty of other new offerings that have come out in the past year or so, right? So the tools are there. We're seeing them getting better and better, right? Just sort of a quick rundown of the criticisms that have been faced, right? And this is they're becoming less and less valid with each passing day, frankly. But just a quick recap: they say, the AI, it makes mistakes, right? It makes mistakes still, and this isn't just in code, right? We talk about like hallucinations, right? The confident mistakes that the large language models can make. So yes, that's true, and it's still to this day, right? They would say, it would just be faster to do it myself, right? It would just be faster to do it the old way. And sure, that may have been the case sometimes still, right? But okay, and what were some of the other ones still? It's like not creative enough. Still, it's like not coming up with interesting ways to write an algorithm or hook up these things. Or anyways, I want to just put all this to rest still, because the way all of this works with software development, we are rapidly approaching the point where it's not the same anymore. It's just not the same. Okay, so you might be familiar with this term vibe coding. I'm still not sure what that exactly means, frankly, still, or why that term is applied. But ultimately, what it is like you've got people who have no software skills, and they're able to talk to an AI and work within a platform that'll help them create a piece of software. I have some friends who are not programmers, who've sat down and been able to knock out some sort of thing, but they all inevitably hit a wall somewhere, right? Because of their lack of knowledge, right? Now, this could fall too. But I think this is sort of like, I don't think that your domain knowledge in the area of software is worthless, right? It's kind of like this. Would you let a carpenter fly an airplane because the airplane has autopilot? Probably not, right? You still want a pilot. Even if the pilot isn't doing anything, you want the guy who knows what is going on, right? So I think that's kind of the same with software, right? Now, what you will see is a dramatic reduction in headcount, because frankly, like a lot of the positions in software that are like at the junior and mid-level are now kind of redundant for organizations. And in a lot of ways, this is a sad thing, because how else are you going to get the opportunity to get into the market, right? Or sorry, to get into this career. So I don't even know if you can call things careers in a few years, but you know what I mean. On the flip side of that, it also could be a filter too, because a lot of people got into software for money, right? You know, they were attracted by big paychecks from big tech companies, and you know, they didn't actually have the passion for doing it, right? Whereas you're gonna still have these kids who, they would code if nobody paid them, like me, right? You know, you don't have to pay me to do code. I'll do that, right? Because I like it. You know, I like seeing my creations come to life, right? And you also, there's also another dividing line too. It's like there are software developers who really like developing software. They like the process of that. They like writing code. They like figuring out the little problems. And they're not so much concerned with what the end result of the product is or something, right? They just like going through that process. I'm not one of those guys. I'm on the other side of that. I really like to see my creations come to life, and I like to see the end result more so than you know. I've never been super thrilled about like, you know, debugging, and I don't know what the exact percentage split is of like, you know, developers who fall into these camps, but all I can say is that for someone like me who likes to see sort of like the results more than the process, AI has been absolutely magical, just like the best thing ever still, because now with these agents, they are helping me do stuff that I didn't want to do, and they're helping me do it so much faster than, you know, I'd have to hire a dev team, you know, like 12 people or something, or whatever, and even then still, right? So what is that going to mean? Well, you're going to see headcount reduction, like I said, on teams. You're going to see a preference for senior developers, right? So, you know, guys that have 10 plus years experience and know what is actually going on, right? And don't need to learn. I think we'll still see like bright young kids who have little experience, but they have the passion for it. They're passionate enough that they can go and do their own sort of like personal projects, portfolio projects or something, and they can get their foot in the door because they're like, hey, look what I've made, right? And like, this is me demonstrating, you know, some domain knowledge or something, right? And so that actually could end up being a good thing still. We could get sort of all the guys who are just in it for the money, you know, and didn't actually have the passion for the job. They can go do something else, or maybe, you know, maybe they'll keep doing it, but maybe they'll be happier about it still, right? And then you'll get the guys who are really passionate about it. And again, too, it's probably going to lean more towards people who are excited about the end result of what they're building rather than the actual process, because that process is starting to get offloaded more and more onto you know, AI and AI agents and things like that. Now, one of the other interesting things here that's kind of happening is we're seeing a reduction in cognitive load for the developer themselves, right? So what does this mean? If you might be familiar with the concept of burnout, right? So this is when, you know, you've just been, you know, revving the gears a little too high mentally, and then you hit a point where it's just like, oof, can't do this anymore, right? Burnout can be a physical thing, burnout can be a mental thing, right? Obviously for software developers, it's kind of a weird combination of both, because it's not physical burnout in the sense where you've been working on a farm for 12 hours a day and it's really hard work, but rather you've been sitting in a chair for 12 hours a day and your body hasn't moved. And that in and of itself is a different kind of sort of like way to make your body pay the price to get the job done, right? You know, and then the mental burnout is, I don't know if there's really many other industries that are comparable to the cognitive workload of a software developer, you know, pre-AI, right? You would have to load in a lot of information into your brain, and stay focused, you know, on very small details while still, you know, being able to manage a lot of other sort of details and concepts. And yeah, it's a very mentally demanding job, and I've seen a lot of guys go through burnout, sometimes with devastating consequences from it, you know. Now what's happening with the AI is that is really reducing the cognitive load on the developer, right? You know, nowadays, after, let's say I go sit in the chair for 4 or 6 hours or something, right? Not only will I get so much more done and be much more productive, but mentally, I'm not nearly as tired. Not nearly as tired still. Like, I don't feel that, that same sort of like, I don't feel like I'm taking any steps towards burnout at this point, which is amazing. I don't think I ever could have said that before still. You know, maybe, I suppose like there are the points in my career where I was not aware of that I was starting to contribute to a future burnout, which I went through. I guess it would have been, yeah, like a couple, 2-3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago, or 4 years. Yeah, 3.5 years ago, maybe. It's like mid 2021, early 2022. Yeah, I literally like just shut my computer off, drove 8,000 kilometers across Canada, and built a cabin in the middle of the forest, right? And I didn't look at my computer for probably 4 months. You know, and that was definitely from burnout. Not only software development, but also startup burnout, you know, which has a whole other sort of side of things to it, right? But I don't feel like that. I don't feel the warning signs of burnout anymore from doing software development still. I believe that, yeah, the AI definitely has a big role to play in that still, by reducing that cognitive load, by taking all those small details that I used to have to think about. And now it's like I'm like a product manager or / project manager, / like QA analyst / obviously like a high level, you know, software domain expert. But I don't feel like I don't have to do those like nitty gritty tasks anymore, which would, you know, take a heavy toll, you know, mentally, right? So this is amazing, I think. So yeah, now I'm not really going to get into the economics of it still, because I think the economics of it in terms of like, you know, job replacement, that's really not exclusive to software developers. We might actually be sort of one of the first ones to be heavily affected by it, just because of the nature of working purely in the digital space, right? You know, there doesn't have to be a robot or like some sort of a physical entity that comes in and also does things, right? There's no physical, not necessarily any physical aspect to software development. You know, it can all just be done by the AIs in the box, right? So it does lend itself well to that. But yeah, in terms of like the actual job changing, yeah, it's great if you love sort of creating things. If you're a creative person, you love creating things, you love seeing your creations come to life, and you want to have that done faster, cheaper, with less cognitive load, less stress. This is just amazing for you, right? On the flip side of that, if you're a developer who's in it for the cash, enjoys the process more than the result, and don't necessarily have a passion or have any creative ideas to do stuff, your life's probably going to change. You might not be a software developer anymore still, just because of, again, the changing nature of the industry. Yeah, so I mean, that's what I've got for today. We'll talk more about the economics in general in the next one, and we'll take care.